A very good afternoon and welcome to Barcelona, the venue for round 6 of MotoGP in 2026. We did tell you that MotoGP was going to come thick and fast in the month of May, and we weren't lying as well. And do you know what? Thank goodness it is, because what a world title fight it looks as though we've got on our hands. We arrive here in Barcelona with just 1 point separating Aprilia teammates Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin at the top of the standings after the Martinators' remarkable weekend in France last time out, coming through from the third row of the grid on 2 occasions. Firstly in the sprint with one of the great starts in MotoGP history, and then he did it the hard way on Sunday, coming through from 8th on the opening lap to take his first victory of the season, and as a result carry all the momentum here into Barcelona. I guess for Jorge, he will be the happiest rider in Barcelona, probably in the entirety of Spain, that just 5 days on, he gets to go out and ride again, given the amount of confidence and momentum he's going to carry into here. What a performance it was last time out.
Incredible, because as you say, those 2 victories were so different from each other, even if they ultimately came from the same third row of the grid. And his victory on Sunday was remarkable in how patient he stayed during that race, given that it would have been very easy, given that he didn't get that amazing start that he got in the sprint, to potentially get a bit rash, a bit impatient as he was trying to make his way through the field. It was clear that he knew he had the speed, even if we didn't quite spot it until about halfway through the race. Of course, key moments in terms of how clean he was getting those moves done. Of course, the Pecco Bagnaia crash certainly played a role too, removing an obstacle from his way. And of course, returns to the scene of that famous World Championship success of 2024, which of course will bring back great memories for Jorge Martin anytime he walks through the gates here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. And yeah, he's getting the sense of it again, isn't he? He's definitely, I think, got a clear idea in his head, a clear vision that he can win a second World Championship this season, something that I think we would have given very long odds on at the start of the season, but it's clear now from having been to, this is the 6th different circuit we've been to, 7th if you include Sepang in pre-season. The Aprilia has been the strongest bike, or very close to it, at every circuit we've been to, and obviously with Marc Marquez the likeliest challenger to Aprilia in the World Championship, certainly out of this weekend. We'll wait to see whether he's back in Mugello, and will clearly be close to, if not more than 100 points behind the World Championship leader. It does look as if it's a straight fight for the World Championship at this stage between the factory Aprilia teammates. Yeah,
we're going to hear from both of them at 4 o'clock local time here, where both Marco and Jorge will be in our pre-event press conference alongside the man victorious here 12 months ago in Alex Marquez. Let's just touch on Marc Marquez. We'll be hearing from Davide Tardozzi later in the show. As you rightly say, the big absentee. We should also mention the only absentee this weekend. Good opportunity to mention the fact that Maverick Viñales will make his return. Great to see that Viñales back in action. We spoke in after the flag and said that that's it, championship done, but surgery has gone successfully. Rehabilitation has continued. It looks as though Mugello has potentially been earmarked as where he would like to return. From what we've seen in some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, if you haven't, by the way, checked out the factory Ducati, the Ducati Lenovo teams inside Ducati vlog that they do, in particular one post-Le Mans, then I do recommend you check it out. A brilliant insight, and told us a lot about what Marc Marquez has been going through from the opening 5 rounds of the year. Are we very prematurely saying it's championship over, or although the gap could be close to 100 points, when he does return for Mugello, is it out of the question? Are we ruling him out just yet? I mean, it would take something rather remarkable, wouldn't it? But ever since we've got here, all I've heard is people saying, I wouldn't rule him out just yet. Which camp are you in?
If there's anyone capable of doing it, it's Marc Marquez. That much we can say. I know some people don't like me drawing comparisons to Formula One, but I'm going to anyway. Could potentially see a very similar scenario to what we saw in Formula One last year, where we had 2 teammates fighting for a World Championship in what seemed like a dominant package at McLaren, and then Max Verstappen, who is basically Formula One's Marc Marquez, let's face it, went on an incredible run, a relentless run in the second half of the season. He was described as the shark by many in that box. Yep. He was described as Jaws, because he just constantly, he's always smelling blood. So Marc Marquez, if he returns and he can get back to the level he was at in the first half of last year, then it can be done, because we saw he was, 200 points clear at the top of the World Championship before he got injured. So it's going to take that sort of run. I guess what works against Marc Marquez, even putting to one side how he'll be feeling physically, is that it doesn't feel as if the Ducati has the same advantage over Aprilia that it had when Marc was dominating last season, but perhaps we've not truly seen the benchmark of the Ducati yet because we haven't had a fully fit Marc Marquez on it.
Yeah, of course, Ducati are victorious once this year with Alex Marquez in Jerez. They did look pretty good in Le Mans as well with those new upgrades. Pecco Bagnaia saying today he feels fast for the first time in 18 months. And I thought, interestingly as well, of all the people, Jorge Martin, speaking on Sunday night, was the one that was not ruling out Marc Marquez and saying he is still a player in this championship. But we'll switch our attention back to Aprilia. We will hear from Davide Tardozzi later in the programme for an update on the reigning world champion number 93, because it was a historic day for the Noali squad. Once fighting it out for the bottom places, fighting it out just for a point scoring finish in MotoGP. That doesn't seem oh so long ago, and now locking out the podium places for the very first time. And you have to say, it's been coming. It's been a long time coming, ever since they really took over and started dominating from Marc's absence, really, from Indonesia onwards last year.
Should have happened in Austin, shouldn't it? Let's face it, had Ai Ogura not had the mechanical misfortune there, he would have been on the podium. I think that's a fairly safe assumption. Yeah, we were working out during the race last weekend. 2021, Aprilia were bottom 6th in the Constructors' Championship, and they've already exceeded their points total from that 2021 season by the end of round 5. Yes, we've had sprints as well, but they've already exceeded that points tally from 2021. They've gone from, quite simply, the back of the grid to the front of the grid in the space of 4.5 years, and that takes some doing in MotoGP. And yeah, there's no question that the Aprilia is the reference bike in MotoGP nowadays. And I feel like this circuit this weekend as well, which, taking last year out of the equation, which was a little bit of an anomaly, this circuit was always one of the Aprilia bankers over the course of the season. Barcelona was so often a circuit where Aprilia, even when the Ducati was the dominant bike, Aprilia were super, super strong here in Barcelona, because it's a circuit where you need a bike that turns well, that doesn't stress its tyre too much when it's on the angle, and that really does, I guess, fall into the category of Aprilia strength. So yeah, there's no question that the RSGP has become the reference bike. Jorge Martin and Marco Bezzecchi clearly recognise that they're in a battle for the World Championship this season. But in terms of battle for overall race victories, I don't think we can narrow it down to just the 2 Aprilia riders anymore.
No, absolutely not. And it's very interesting you mentioned the dominance that they had at this circuit even before this run of form started to come to play. It'd be interesting to see how much of a factor that can play, because Alex Marquez did look unbeatable when we were here last year. And when did he last have that kind of dominance? Jerez last year, when we could see what he could do. He was just in that flow state straight away. So he's certainly one man to consider. Another man to consider, fresh off the back of his debut MotoGP podium, is Trackhouse Racing's Ai Ogura. Ai, welcome to Gear Up. How are you? That's good to hear. Now a MotoGP podium finisher. So when you entered the paddock this morning, did you enter it in a different manner with a bigger smile on your face? Do things feel different?
I just feel good.
Yeah, I didn't imagine things would feel any different. Let's look back on what happened in Le Mans then. It was going to be a challenging race, given where you started from on the grid. At what point did you start to believe, okay, there's a big result on offer here?
I think when I see a quite drop from Pedro, that's when I see, like, you know, when I start to see maybe podium is possible. Yeah.
And how much of the result is down to the team environment as well? I know you've got some great guys in your side of the box, and looking at their faces when you came over and took the checkered flag, I could see how much it meant to them. So that must have been quite special to share that moment with them.
Yeah, I think for us, the first podium wasn't just happy, I think, especially like the races I finished 5th, 6th so many times, and especially like the race in Austin, we could see a podium finish, but there's some issues, and we had so many races like that before, so that's why everybody feeling the same way, like, oh, finally. So yeah, happy to see everyone happy.
I think back to when you first came into MotoGP at the start of last year. I remember speaking to you at the Sepang test, and I said one of your big strengths in Moto2 was always managing the rear tyre, having that grip at the end of the race, and you said, well, everyone's good at it in MotoGP, so that strength might not carry over to MotoGP, but it feels like it is. It feels like, once again, that's a big strength for you, certainly at the moment. Do you see that as a big strength, and do you think that's going to, particularly at a circuit like this, where rear tyre is always critical with the low grip, could that be a big advantage for you?
For sure. I mean, first of all, I'm really happy to have my strong point like in a Moto3 or Moto2 time, even in a MotoGP class. And yeah, the Barcelona is a circuit that is really demanding for the tire, and you really need to look after the tire. So it can be a good weapon. So yeah, we'll see.
What are the secrets to having a strength like that? We were speaking to Fabio Di Giannantonio earlier, and he said he loves your riding style. He loves how precise you are on the bike. Is that the best way to manage a tire to this? Have you got to be just millimetre precise?
Or
do you not want to give it away to your rivals?
No. But I don't really know. I mean, I just, try my best in all the kind of situation, all the laps of the race. So I don't really know.
And I guess if there's one area that's not a strength at the moment that you want to improve upon, I guess it would be qualifying. How hard are you working at the moment on trying to improve those time attacks, and what is the missing piece, do you think, to try and get yourself onto those front 2 rows of the grid?
For sure, time attack is one of our weak points still, but it's getting better. And now our main focus is the start. I never had a good start, like perfect start from me, then in line with the others. So yeah, it's like this now. So yeah, try to improve the start as well.
And just last few from me, the first podium finisher in MotoGP from Japan in 14 years. So what's the last few days? What's the reception been like from back home in Japan?
I could see Japanese fans were really, really happy. I could see this in social media and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't really care how long ago it was. I don't really care about these things, but just happy to see Japanese people happy here.
It won't be 12 years till the next one, will it?
No. When I spoke to you in Parc Ferme after a result, you finished it by saying, now it's time to celebrate. I know you enjoy a whiskey from time to time. Did you get the chance to enjoy a drink and celebrate?
Yeah.
That's what we like to hear. Well, hopefully it's not the only whiskey you'll have this year, Ai. Great to chat with you, and have a good weekend.
Thank you.
There we go. Great as ever to chat to Ai Ogura. He one of the great characters on the MotoGP grid. You know you're never going to get War and Peace out of him, but that's because he's precise in what he says, accurate in what he says, and that personality of his really does translate into how he rides the bike as well.
Yeah, dances to the beat of his own drum, does Ai. But yeah, he's I guess a little shy in front of camera, but there's definitely a steely determination behind that. He's no mug. He's a very, very clever Grand Prix rider. We've seen it right through his career through Moto3, where he was so nearly a champion, of course, Moto2, where he was a world champion. And we've spoken about this already off air today, and I've put my money where my mouth is on this one. I fancy him big time to win this weekend. Spoke to him there, asking the question about his big strength, which is managing a rear tyre, having that grip towards the end of the Grand Prix. That kind of strength will pay you back big time around here.
Absolutely, and what did he say? It's a good weapon to have, and I think it's going to be a weapon that he can put to good effect this weekend. Certainly one to keep your eye on, although that's not really breaking news given the fact he was on a MotoGP podium for the first time 4 days ago. More exclusives from Jack Appleyard as part of MotoGP Gear Up as ever. Right, let's bring you up to speed with a couple of the other stories, and one of the big headlines that you might have been enjoying on social media, something that we missed in all of the celebrations down at Aprilia, was the last lap, last corner duel between Fabio Di Giannantonio and Pedro Acosta. I think it's safe to say that there was a bit of a war of words, actually, with Diggia firing it up the inside of Pedro Acosta to steal fourth place away at the very last moment. And then, as he came out of the final corner, Diggia giving Pedro not one, but two pretty long looks right into his visor, which Acosta didn't take particularly well, telling Spanish media, nobody looks at me after overtaking me. I'll remember that one. We'll settle it on the track. So obviously, we went and asked both of them about it today to find out whether that beef is still there. And here is what the pair of them had to say.
I laughed quite a lot of times at Tom seeing a lot of comments about these things. On my side, it was just a great move, I think, for the last lap, last corner, and also for the championship at this time. And then I just tried to see if he was gonna cut me back. Then all the story, this is fun, it's racing. So yeah, actually, I'm enjoying these kind of things.
Have you had the chance to speak with him since, maybe on social media or here in the paddock?
No, we didn't have the chance, but I don't think it's quite necessary, you know. But in case, I'm here, no problem.
How is the relationship with Pedro?
Good. Yeah, I respect him a lot as a rider. He's doing great things since he joined MotoGP, but also before Moto2, Moto3. So he's a great rider for sure.
After what he said, would you do it again? Do you regret doing it? Is there anything there at all?
If you want to do again, okay, let's play on track. For me, it's not a problem. He's for sure, I respect him as a rider. He's a great rider, super talented, but for me, he's just like another one. So I will do it for sure to try to keep the position.
I'm not thinking anymore about this. It's not clever to discuss, even when we were fighting for a fourth position, you know. It's not where I want to be fighting.
About the relationship between you both, is it okay? How is it?
We have a professional
There's a little bit of that. I think it was a little bit of a whine. Handbags between the pair of them.
Yeah, and Pedro Acosta there said they have a professional relationship. Yeah, MotoGP riders, they're not here to make friends, are they? They're here to win championships. And I think Pedro Acosta's, major beef with what happened in Le Mans is exactly what he said there. They were battling for fourth place, and Pedro Acosta was in the battle for second for so much of that race before, first of all, Pecco Bagnaia crashed, and then both Jorge Martin and Ai Ogura came whistling past him on fast finishing Aprilias in the second half of that race. Yeah, if you're trying to get to the line as fast as possible and beat someone who you've just passed into the previous corner, I'm not so sure turning and looking back down the racetrack is the fastest way to do that, but we'll take Fabio Di Giannantonio at his word at that one. But it's just great beef, isn't it? Fabio Di Giannantonio has not been afraid to put himself about a bit already this season. He's already had a little bit of a tiff with Marc Marquez back in Austin, of course, when Marc took him out of the sprint. They had a little bit of a moment in the pit lane when I think Marc was trying to shake Diggia off and following him during qualifying, which I don't think Marc particularly appreciated. So Fabio Di Giannantonio, do you know what? I love it. He's having the best start to a Grand Prix season. He's the top Ducati rider, and he's puffing his chest out a bit.
He is. He's ruffling some feathers as he does it as well. And I can understand it from Pedro Acosta's point of view. I'm sure he on a KTM will be feeling, if you're really celebrating passing me on a Ducati at the final lap, at the final corner like that, then maybe let's get our priorities right.
Pedro also blamed himself for that. He said, I was defending the whole last lap when I had no reason to, and I gave Diggia the opportunity.
But anyway, let's see how it unfolds this weekend. Actually, speaking to Diggia earlier today, I put to him, I said, Pedro said he better watch out on track. So, are you worried? And he went, bring it on. So that's what we like to hear. It looks as though there is going to be a little bit of rough and tumble between those two. The big question is, will they be fighting at the front? Because we've mentioned the two Aprilias. We said we'd come back to it. Just before we hear from Davide Tardozzi, the other man that will be joining the two Aprilia riders in the press conference is Alex Marquez. As we said earlier, we arrived in Jerez without him being in the best form, and something clicked. Given what happened last year, he was on another level this year, should have had the double if it wasn't for a costly crash, which he held his hands up for making that error in the sprint. So is this going to be a similar story? Is he just going to walk in here with a spring in his step and things are going to click again? What do we expect from Alex this weekend? Yeah,
whatever clicked for Alex Marquez in Jerez unclicked again, didn't it, for whatever reason, in Le Mans. And I guess more long-term, that's a debate worth having in terms of, did Alex Marquez find something that's going to have him in the title battle or a regular championship or race-winning contender this year? Maybe not, because he's gone back to the level he was at before that in Le Mans. But you're right to point out that his record here last year was incredible. Marc Marquez was very much at the peak of his powers. This was pre-Marc Marquez injury, pre-winning the championship, and Marc didn't have an answer for Alex Marquez, particularly in the long right-handed corners, of which there are quite a few around this circuit. We know that Alex Marquez is absolutely incredible. I do worry in terms of whether the Ducati will be able to keep its rear tyre in good shape enough for the second half of the race. Maybe the slightly cooler conditions that we're going to have this weekend might just play into their hands a little bit, but we know that in terms of pure level the playing field, just look at the riders, forget the bikes they're on. There are a few better riders around this particular circuit than Alex Marquez. Yeah, absolutely. And you should rightly mention the weather forecast and the cooler temperatures. It does also look like tomorrow afternoon we could be underwater, which will make a very interesting 60-minute practice session. Right, okay, we did promise you the opportunity to hear from Davide Tardozzi, so let's now hear from the factory Ducati team boss, because fresh from the incident that Marc Marquez had at Le Mans on Sprint Saturday, if you weren't there and you have missed the news, then the latest being that not only has he broken the 5th metatarsal in his right foot, which has been operated on, Marc also revealing that the crash in Indonesia last year, where he had that obviously quite big shoulder injury, also resulted in a screw from another previous injury. Motorcycle racers, am I right? Had caused a screw to be touching, to be touching on the radial nerve. He said afterwards in that Ducati vlog that I mentioned earlier, I've been riding with 1.5 arms all year. He's had it operated on. He's now back home in Madrid and recovering. So what is the very latest? When, if at all, will we expect to see the 93 back? We imagine it will be Mugello, but will we get a time frame? That's what I'm meaning. Let's hear from Davide Tardozzi, team boss down at Ducati.
The surgery went good, and that we have to wait for the next step with the doctors, but we have to wait that everything get well.
We saw on Saturday at Le Mans that Marc did give quite an emotional speech about the whole situation. Some thoughts on that? And also, were you aware that he already had this pre-planned surgery for the shoulder, or did you find out there?
I guess that Marc already explained everything, so I think that Marc's words was really clear, and I guess that everybody knows that he was suffering a lot during the start of the season, and that now we have to wait that the surgery is, the heel is done, and that the surgery makes his steps.
Got to ask, given that he did have this problem with the shoulder, how impressive does that make his performances look? Because he has been in contention for a lot of sprint wins. It's been some days that have been difficult, but even with that problem, he's been quite fast.
Yeah, knowing what it happens and knowing what the doctor told us, I think that Marc shows again that he is a superhero and a super rider. So he did something incredible, because with his body situation, I guess that nobody else was able to do what he did.
When can we expect to see Marc back? Have you got a time frame?
Do not know. We have to wait. I think that it's impossible so far to say in I don't know how many days or whatever. We have to wait, and so far we don't know.
And to replace him in those GPs that he will miss, if he does miss any, is Michele Pirro preferred option, or are you looking also to Nicolo Bulega?
Yeah, for sure the rules allowed us to not substitute him for this race that is a back-to-back, but if for some reason it will be not able to be in Mugello, for sure we will replace him.
Have a great weekend, Davide.
Thank you.
So, a couple of things to cover off there. Firstly, Davide Tardozzi referencing Mugello there. I think we all anticipate Marc will be making a huge push to get there. It's Ducati's centenary year. They're going to have huge celebrations there. They would like a full-strength rider lineup, including their reigning MotoGP world champion. That goes as a given. And secondly, touching on what he's been able to achieve this year, despite this now apparent injury. Victor of the sprint in Brazil, lap record in Q1, winner of the sprint in weird circumstances, but still winner of the sprint in Jerez. And I think what he's been able to achieve in those opening 5 rounds with 1.5 arms, as he put it, I think is what is leading to people saying you'd be foolish to rule him out of contention, or certainly playing a huge role in the outcome of where this World Championship does end up going to, because if he comes back the Marc Marquez of old, which he anticipates, Davide Tardozzi anticipates that he will do, then he's going to be a tough man to beat.
It does make you wonder, if Marc Marquez does return in Mugello, do we read to that he still thinks he can win the World Championship?
I would say so.
This year? Because Marc Marquez has said ever since 2020, that ill-fated 1-week return at Jerez, which went all sorts wrong for him, had long-lasting effects for him, that he was going to listen to his body. He wasn't going to return from any further injuries prematurely. So Marc Marquez, I guess, is going to follow that to the letter, and if that means missing the Italian Grand Prix, of course, that's one Grand Prix that I'm sure he wouldn't want to miss. As you say, such a special Grand Prix for Ducati, even if he didn't exactly get a home race reception last time he raced at Mugello, as David Tardozzi was very keen to tell the fans in the grandstand after Marc Marquez won the sprint. Yeah, whatever way you cut it, whether he's going to win it ultimately or whether he's just going to run interference, he's going to play a big role in how this World Championship pans out. Because for sure, if Marc Marquez is back, and he is absolutely fully fit, not the version of fully fit that we saw in the first few races of the season, he's going to interfere with Aprilia riders that are fighting for the World Championship. And yeah, Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin will be well aware that the 93 is not going to have any thoughts of trying to, worry about others riders' World Championships. He's going to go all out. And Marc Marquez riding with little pressure on his shoulders will be a very dangerous Marc Marquez.
And Marc Marquez riding with a point to prove is a dangerous one as well. I have to say, I'm getting pretty excited of what's to come this year. We've only had 5 rounds and already 1 point separating teammates at the top of the championship. One we expect to be leaving at the end of the year as well, potentially doing it for the second time in 3 years. And Marc Marquez coming back, hoping to prove a point with no pressure on his shoulders. We've got all the ingredients of an unbelievable end to the season. It really is going to be fascinating. Right, one last little bit of news before we hand over to the press conference. The Repsol Honda team, he was Repsol Honda team manager for a very long time, HRC team boss Alberto Puig announced today that after over 10 years in the role, we'll be moving into a more advisory role from 2027 onwards. Of course, has played such a huge role in the success down there at Honda, most part alongside Marc Marquez. Davide Brivio, the Trackhouse boss, is expected to move it across to HRC in a slightly different role next year, and it does seem as though Honda will be announcing Alberto's replacement in the coming weeks and months. But it's certainly, alongside all of the 2027 rider market, it looks as though some of the team managers might be on the move as well. It certainly means that 2027 is going to be the shake-up that we promised it to be. And of course, all of this has not been announced yet, so we're waiting for all that to come in due course. That's all to look forward to. Right now, though, let's focus on round 6 here in Barcelona to talk you through and preview what to expect here. The 2 men fighting for World Championship honours, Aprilia duo, Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin, and Barcelona's very own Alex Marquez. All 3 alongside, as ever, Matt Burt.
One minute. We are there already, eh? Perché un minuto? No. Siamo troppo in anticipo.